An astonishing coincidence or the truth about a famous world actress who has already lived on Earth once? Or do we have an amazing case of reincarnation? So sit back, a wonderful conspiracy theory. So Anne Hathaway from The Devil Wears Prada is married. And take a look at her husband. The entire internet just exploded because her husband is an exact copy of William Shakespeare. Look at how similar they are. Well, it's really believable that cloning exists. Shakespeare's wife was named, attention, Anne Hathaway, and these Anne Hathaways also look very similar physically. This supposedly explains why Anne doesn't change over the years and why they have such a strong marriage in Hollywood. Well, of course, from a past life. Shakespeare said that in that life he didn't have enough time to love his wife. And here they have love at first sight. Moreover, the modern Anne Hathaway was born exactly on the day of the marriage of the previous Anne Hathaway and Shakespeare. So what do you think about that? I'm waiting for your comments.
Well, that's quite amusing. In that regard,
Well, such are the stories.
yes, there are plenty of them. Well, listen, actually, the most common story is probably one of the most famous ones. It's the story about the bald and the hairy, about how the czars in Russia, they change. First bald, then hairy, then bald, then hairy. Dmitry Medvedev and Nicholas II, they are also, placed. It's not just about the bald and the hairy. There's also this kind of connection between these czars. That is, Nicholas II and Medvedev, if you put them side by side, their faces are exactly the same. I don't like the idea itself that we have some kind of reincarnation there. Could it really have reincarnated? Those who read my blog, those who read Lyra in this blog, those who generally read anything about esotericism, I think you immediately, in general, understand that it sounds a bit strange. I mean, we've all reincarnated thousands of times, in the literal sense of the word, thousands of times.
Why is there such a coincidence that
We need to take a look here.
here they both look similar and here they also look similar?
Well, we need to see if they have any connection or not. Okay, Anne Hathaway, we will look at them to see if there is any soul kinship. Here I have it. It turns out yes. So this is Adam Shulman and Anne Hathaway. We will now see how much they intersect. This is a very interesting technique because it is performed only on the higher self.
What are you doing right now? Can you comment on it? Right now, specifically?
Right now, I'm looking for a picture where they are standing next to each other so I don't have to align them myself. Anne Hathaway, Adam Shulman. Now I need 2 minutes of silence. From the outside, it seems like some kind of intense magic. I will comment on it later. Watch. Again, for those who are not aware, I have been working with the higher self for 25 years. When you reach the higher self and already know how to answer questions, know how to see the past, see the future, and can conditionally look at your purpose, health, financial relationships. Well, in general, you already know how to do everything, right? You always want something more. A human being wants more. The higher self, again, is in balance with the mind, but only if you reach it correctly. After completing the standard training, there are 4 directions a person can take for additional, what I call post-course training. The first direction is the soul number. Soul number is the contact with the age of the spirit. I have about 10 texts on this topic. Links to my texts are below. Be sure, as they say, to check out the blog. About a year and a half ago, I wrote a series about the age of the spirit. There should be 80 to 90% coincidences within the group. If we take it specifically in a blind test, the first direction. The second direction is, besides the age of the spirit, it's the spark and blocks, an amazing practice, essentially determining spirituality through a photograph. No matter how strange it may seem, if in the first practice you determine how much this local higher self is here, how much, roughly speaking, it has gained experience. That is, again, you must not only learn to feel your own spirit, you must learn to feel the spirit of another person. Exactly. And then it's like, like an aura. So do you see your own aura? There, you start like there, and then you begin to see the aura of other people a little bit. Or, for example, you read certain things from yourself, then you start reading other people as well. It's the same at first, You kind of touch your own spirit, then you touch the spirit of another person. The second practice is the practice of sparks and blocks. That is, it's the manifestation of the spark. Again, the manifestation of the higher self. To what extent is each person's higher self manifested? This can be measured statistically. Well, in this practice, by the way, the coincidences are 95, 100%. And it's the simplest one. You can directly see how much a person truly has contact with their higher self. Moreover, if 10 people do this, even those who can do this practice just a little, all 10 will say exactly the same thing. The third practice is precisely the one I just did. It's the practice of the so-called soul matrix. I also have it on my blog, and that's what it's called. You enter the spirit of one person, then you enter the spirit of another person. Again, we do this purely. We do not do this through visualization. We do not use any angels or archangels. No, we do it purely. This is an incredibly complex technique. It drains a ton of energy, but it's very cool in the sense that you really start to feel the spirit of another person. And then you observe how their spirit interacts with the second spirit. That is, yes, like there are two of them, for example, two people. You observe how one spirit connects with the other spirit. So it's really, like graduate school after high school. We are conducting a large study with the club based on age, or rather, not by age, but specifically on the matrix of the spirit. To what extent, for example, friends, close relatives, colleagues at work, within the same country, how much are they kindred spirits? How much is the space around us? Yes, kindred spirits. Are they all kindred spirits? Everyone we meet in life, are they kindred spirits? And so on. Based on all this, texts will be written, analytics will be done, and all of this will be posted on our blog. Regarding, yes, so if we take the soul matrix, it is divided into three, as they say, layers. So yes, the first layer is kindred spirits. The second layer is friends. The third layer is relatives. So kindred spirits are those who have directly met. The second circle is friends. Honestly, I'll say that for most of us. The truly kindred spirits, in the first circle, there are only about 3, 4, or 5. Well, that's the maximum. In the second circle, friends, there are plenty. Well, practically, probably every friend we have in this life, or just good acquaintances, they are most likely in the second circle. And acquaintances are those whom we have just seen. That is, those whom we have met somewhere at some point, crossed paths with somehow. They are in the middle of the first circle for each other. That is, they are like soulmates, really close, because the closer to the center, the stronger the connection. They are right in the middle of the first circle. So they are like soulmates with a strong connection, a strong karmic connection. That means they definitely lived before. And by the way, here's what's interesting. They say, there's Shakespeare, right? You know how very often during incarnations, the soul likes to play a little joke. Maybe she was Shakespeare and he was? That could also be the case.
Well, in general, it's possible, yes, that the appearance has been preserved. So, why was this done? Is there a reason why they chose the same appearance as they had in their past incarnation?
Firstly, to recognize each other, definitely. Secondly, to sort of go through. So, like, look, how can I describe this to you? Appearance is an anchor. Appearance in leaves is an anchor in any case. Like if you don't remember at all how, what, and where, yes, seeing a similar appearance, it works exactly like this, like a beacon. By the way, various secret clans that teach reincarnation using beacons know about this. That's a separate topic. Regarding specifically appearance. Appearance is truly an anchor. For example, if you have some pictures of your past appearance or something else from your past, yes, hanging there, you will simply remember it faster, yes. You will connect with it more quickly. You deliberately choose a similar appearance. And by the way, I even remember a number of my past lives. And Lera described a number of her past lives in her blog. And Nastia, my wife, remembers several of her past lives, including those with me. In fact, it's quite a common occurrence to have, as they say, the exact same name, the exact same appearance. Of course, you really need to make a special effort for that. For those interested in this topic, read more about the life story of Shakespeare and his wife. How did they live, right? How did their life end? So that's the whole story. You can get more detailed information about this and see how these people live. I didn't say today whether it is or isn't, but if it is, there will be some kind of continuation. It will feel as if they are doing in this life what they did in the past, or continuing what they started in the past. Regarding Shakespeare, if there were a photograph of Shakespeare, I would say for sure, with 100% certainty, we would match them directly. First of all, we would compare them by the age of the spirit. But here you need to go directly into the information base, look through the higher self, delve deeper, and verify. At a glance, they were actually quite often a couple. This is not their first life as a couple. That is, they were really often a couple. But then further, yes. Look, I don't really want to delve further because it's one thing to skim the surface, right? And it's another thing to get into the very essence. And if there were a photograph, as I mentioned before, I wouldn't even need to access the higher self. I could do everything from here. But this is already, such personal information. I still don't like to delve into such personal information without the person's request. If, for example, they come to me with their husband and say, Danila, we want to know Nemo if we were Shakespeare or not, then I will take a look. And if they allow it to be published, then we will publish it. There you go. Whoever wants to take action.
Take action, it would be interesting for you.
At the very least, it would be interesting. This is not a joke, just so you know.
Friends, if anyone has access to Anne Hathaway or her husband, you can do this. Regarding appearance in general, what determines the appearance a person is born with? And also, by the way, if a person resembles their relative, they say that they are living out their relative's fate. Is this true or not?
Every effect has its own cause. It's a law. If a person looks very much like someone, especially a relative, well, there is a specific reason for that. Why did they choose exactly this body with such a strong, as they say, DNA level connection to this relative? There must have been a specific reason for that. Is he living out their exact fate, as people often like to say in general terms? Not exactly. Rather, it's like this. He has a special connection, most likely, with this relative. Well, otherwise, he simply wouldn't have chosen this particular body. It wouldn't have been formed in this way. He has a special connection with this relative. What is this connection? It might be some of his talents or something else. Moreover, again, in the family, if you have a special connection, you start to inherit not only, as they say, the good, but you might also begin to inherit the so-called bad. And as a result, yes, this can lead to roughly the same thing. Well, in other words, roughly speaking, if this person had beliefs about lack of money and this person, I don't know, had beliefs about, let's say, relationships with the opposite sex, and if you are very similar to them, you might start adopting their beliefs. So to speak, yes, you mix sand with something else and then with something else, right? You ended up with a brick. Well, the second person who also mixed all these ingredients will most likely end up with a brick too. This is the principle of repeatability, and it works quite well. So we really see here, yes, that if a person, yes, has a certain connection with their relative, they then, through this connection, by adopting all the attitudes of this relative, they can indeed start attracting something similar, simply because the ingredients are absolutely identical. The same attitudes, and even more or less the same appearance, and so on. In this regard, yes, but again, everything depends on the spirit. The spirit might be very experienced, and perhaps in a past life, I don't know, they were Osho, right? And for example, they might come with such an appearance to heal the family line. That is, they took the most, as they say, blocked relative and came with this appearance to heal the family line. Please, that's also an option. We can only state the fact that this spirit needed a stronger connection with this relative for some reason. That's it. Everything else needs to be observed, as always, in dynamics.
Now, regarding the wedding, these marriages in heaven, does it guarantee that these souls will be together in every incarnation? I understand that the church refutes this theory, and Mo says that there's no such thing. But from your point of view?
I'll say this. Many who have been married in church, as sad as it may seem, not only do they not stay together, in new lives, but they don't even make it to the end in this life and get divorced.
But maybe they divorced, and in the next life they meet again to learn a lesson. So it's as if by this marriage, they promise themselves that they will work through some of their lessons across lives.
Look, what is a church wedding? In general, if we are talking about an egregorial wedding, that is a wedding in Christianity, it is essentially a certain connection to egregores. It can work or it can break. Again, everything depends on the soul, on its experience. Nothing ever happens without the knowledge of the higher self. So if the higher self wants, what is the higher self? It's you yourself there. So yes, if you yourself want to go through a certain experience, you will go through it. If you don't want to, you won't go through it. And all these egregorial connections and so on, they are kind of, well, formally there. There are many different ways to not follow these connections. So if you really want, as they say, to embody this connection and play specifically in it, then you will play in it. If you don't want to play in it and want to play in something else, then you will play in something else. That's all.
And also, there's an observation that I've even seen that animals often resemble their owners a lot. Why does this happen? Well, even if not in appearance, then certainly in character.
Animals are very empathetic. They really sense another person because they don't have a strong mind. Essentially, what do they live by? Instincts. So what are instincts? They are in many ways actually a kind of intuition. Therefore, in reality, animals and trees are in contact with the spirit much more strongly than humans. Approach a birch tree, just touch it. And if you have even a little ability to feel, you will sense the energy of the spirit in it. In the year 2013, which is 12 years ago, yes, how much is it? 12 years ago, I wrote articles about how you can really learn from an oak tree, from a birch tree, if we take the topic of animals. Animals have a strong connection with the spirit, and they have very strong empathy, meaning a very strong sense of another person. And the spirit is always compassionate, always loving, always somehow sincere. In fact, all animals serve more. I had a great text about the afterlife of trees, where trees go after death. I highly recommend checking it out. You will look at the topic of trees in a completely different way. But in general, what is this? What kind of creatures are these? The same goes for animals. One of their purposes is to serve humans. As strange as it may sound, as cruel as it might seem, animals find this not exactly pleasurable. It's just that at this stage, they need it. They explore the world, including, this is just one of, as they say, the vectors, including through serving humans. This is especially true for animals that are born at home. Animals, in a way, mimic humans. They start to blend with them. They begin to empathetically touch the human's field, right? Because, once again, point one, right? Because in general, they don't have much intelligence. They have more of a sensory perception. They empathetically feel the person. And in terms of energy, a person is actually stronger than an animal, that they radiate. The animal is drawn to them, slowly starting to adopt their traits, right? Plus, it's actually the structure of the spirit itself that needs this experience. Because of this, by the way, it happens that animals take on diseases. For example, a cat got sick with, I don't know, cancer or something else. Nothing led to this. And suddenly it got sick, or, for example, fell and got injured, or, I don't know, something else happened. But in general, this is actually a certain diversion. This could also be a topic for a separate study, how exactly animals perceive these diversions. Maybe I'll write a text on this topic someday. That's it. But it's interesting.
Dear friends, I invite you all to my course with a personal vision, Return to the True Self. This course has been around for over 12 years. And recently we launched it in English with my complete personal vision in 6 modules, working with blocks, working with egregores, working with the ego, contacting the higher self. answers to simple questions, answers to more complex questions. And then there's what we call the Great Journey. It's contact with space, contact with the planet, contact with God, contact with anything at your request through the higher self. Health, finances, relationships, purpose, past life. The course is available at any time. You can sign up for it using the link below this video. Come on over. I'll be waiting for you.